My manager said, "Hey, good job," in a light-hearted manner. Adding insult to injury, he was chuckling. It annoyed me, to be really honest. My anger increased when I noticed that everyone else was laughing about it. Okay, I'll exact my retribution on each of you. I'm Tom, a 42-year-old employee in an office. My primary role is marketing, and since I've always been good with numbers, I feel like I'm a natural fit there. However, the relationships in the office haven't been great lately, and I've been debating whether or not to stay. The primary offender is Joseph, my manager. In addition to being my employer, he is 2 years my junior. Since he's the president's son, he's really not cut out to be a manager, but that's probably why he got promoted. Joseph is surrounded by individuals who are constantly trying to get close to him, but I don't mind if you submit to authority. I handled him the same as I would any other person. Joseph keeps saying, "I'm your boss, you know, and I'm going to take over as president someday," as if he doesn't like my attitude. Being disobedient won't benefit you. In no way do I feel like I'm acting rebelliously. I merely draw attention to situations in which a plan doesn't seem sound based on the data, or in which Joseph makes statements that don't add together. That's my work, so I would act in the same way regardless of who it is. I do my best to be polite, and I treat Joseph with the deference he deserves as my boss. Joseph is not fond of it, though. He even asked me directly, "When are you going to quit?" I wouldn't object if you departed right away. That's right, Joseph finds me annoying. However, he also doesn't get along with James, my junior coworker. James and Joseph both started working for the company at the same time and are 2 years younger than me. "We're the same age, but you're still a regular employee and I'm a manager," is something Joseph keeps saying. You realize how useless you actually are. You are free to stop at any time. James is actually a junior in my high school class. Although James performs his work effectively in my opinion, Joseph claims that James is useless. People tend to underestimate him since he simply doesn't market himself. The company would suffer a great deal if James departed, but Joseph and the other staff don't seem to understand that. "Tom, how about grabbing a drink after work?" James inquired. It's likely that he is disturbed by something. Despite having different personalities, James and I have always gotten along and have been close since high school. James and his father didn't always get along, but by a strange turn of events, I was able to help them work things out and win his dad's trust. I make an effort to earn people's trust because it feels nice to be recognized by them. James began to vent as soon as we went out for drinks. It seemed that Joseph had resumed his caustic remarks. James gets worked up over it, even when I advise him not to let it affect him. James and I both sighed. If that guy is going to be the next president, I should probably start thinking about a new job soon, I muttered. Yes, I understand that. To be honest, Tom, I don't think I can stay here if you go. Once more, we both sighed. I had to go to a client event one day. Joseph, the department manager, and 2 of my coworkers who joined at the same time as me were also present. These men were Joseph's henchmen. We had to drive the corporate car to the location on the day of the event. One of them drove terribly, and the other did not have a license. Though we couldn't really let Joseph drive under the current circumstances, he always boasts about owning fancy cars. I ended up taking the wheel since I drive frequently. Along with the other 3, I entered the venue after parking. 4 of you, right? They affirmed at reception. I was going to reply when Joseph glanced at me and exclaimed, "What?" in a really dramatic manner. "Why are you in this place?" What is he discussing? Joseph turned to face the receptionist and remarked, "There are only 3 of us from our company," as I stood there in shock. Then he turned back to face me, grinning. "Okay, I appreciate all of your effort. Now the driver can return home." I creased my brow reflexively. Was that what he just said here, really? My other colleagues then joined in. "Joseph, our future president, is attending this ceremony, which is very significant to us. It's just a hassle to have someone who doesn't follow Joseph here like you. Yes, Joseph doesn't even think of you as a member of the team. All you do is drive. We appreciate you driving us here." They chuckled. "Yes, I see how things are. They are sending me away, even though they know this client is vital. What gives?" I wanted to giggle at the concept. Squeezing back a chuckle, I answered, "All right, I understand." But Joseph smirked and commanded, "Come on, driver, get out of here already," which ultimately caused me to break. I found it impossible not to laugh out loud. I think my coworkers believed I had a breakdown. Joseph even scowled in bewilderment. It didn't matter to me. "It seems I'm just a driver, not an employee, so I'll be leaving now." I turned to face the receptionist. The front desk agent appeared stunned. Joseph laughed and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Seemingly amused that I had told the receptionist that. "Have you lost your mind?" My colleagues chuckled with him. I turned my back on Joseph and left the arena, despite his request that I come pick them up after the event. I could still hear the laughter of my colleagues. "The driver has left, boss. Now let's head out." I made a direct drive back to the workplace before giving James a call. I told James I was sorry and what had happened. "Well, that's the reality. I'm going to turn this in," I said, presenting him with my letter of resignation. With a sigh, James replied, "Yes, I will follow suit." We both knew there was no future for us at this organization, and we had been waiting for the ideal opportunity to go. I departed the office promptly at the end of the day, leaving my resignation letter on Joseph's desk. I didn't have to go pick them up because the client event was about to end. There was no formal assignment assigned, and they might simply take the train back. Later, my phone rang when I came home. It was, of course, Joseph. "Hey, come get us quickly," he exclaimed. To which I answered, "What? I've ended my shift already. It's not feasible." Joseph was obviously intoxicated since he was slurring his words, and I was having trouble understanding him. My colleague picked up the phone. "We require transportation home. Come on over here. You're the driver." I couldn't contain my laughter. "You already know it's not possible. Tell Joseph that I've already spoken with AA and placed my resignation letter on his desk tomorrow." Coworker of mine yelled, "I don't care. Please come over here." However, I hung up the phone, told him it was not feasible, and put it on silent mode. When I got to work the following day, the office was bustling. James and I had sent our letters of resignation, so I had prepared myself for a response, but that didn't seem to be the problem. Joseph was yelling at the people I work with. "What do you mean we lost the contract?" "I'm not sure. You spoke with their president yesterday during the event, correct?" "Perhaps something occurred there," one of them answered. Joseph lost it. "Are you blaming me for this?" The coworker sputtered, "No, of course not," and they continued to argue. I approached my desk composedly, took out the paperwork I had prepared for handover, and went to give them to Joseph. He cried out, "What the hell is this?" "I left my resignation letter here yesterday and already informed HR," I quietly said. "The paperwork for the handover are these." Joseph gave me a scowl. "Ah, I see. I observed that. The incompetent one is finally departing. I don't have time for this right now, so just leave them wherever." "Well, I'm about to embark on my vacation." I said, "Thank you for everything. Get out of here already," yelled Joseph, appearing even more agitated. The mess from yesterday's client event consumed Joseph and my coworkers for the whole day, to the point where the president became involved. I ignored the mayhem and left the workplace in the interim. James called me the following day while I was on vacation and asked to meet him at a cafe. "Tom, a long time has passed." "You must have had a difficult day yesterday," said James's father, who had invited me. James said, "Tom, I've already told my father about the situation at work," and his father gave him a heartfelt nod. "So, have you decided to join us?" James's dad inquired. "If you're still offering, I'd be honored," I said. James's dad cast a shadow. "What's up with that Joseph man, by the way? Yesterday, when he was extremely inebriated, he told me that since he will be the next president, I should start showing him appreciation, and that he is doing my firm a favor by working with us. The audacity. And my secretary informed me that you were dispatched home in the driver's role." I gave a nod. James's father happens to be the president of one of our customer companies, it turns out. James and I were both employed by our company, which was the only reason they were doing business with us. Joseph appeared to have entirely misinterpreted the situation, believing that our company was doing them a favor by working with them, while in fact they could have easily chosen to deal with another organization. What a farce. Moreover, I had previously met the receptionist, who happened to be James's father's secretary, when I went to dine with James and his father yesterday. I made the extra effort to inform the receptionist that I was leaving for that reason. For some time now, James's father, the president, had been pressuring us to change careers and work for his business. He wanted James to become president, but James decided to work for other companies first, in part because I was employed there, and ultimately ended up at our company. James, however, was even more conflicted about taking over the family business after witnessing Joseph's actions. James and his father came to me for guidance, and I advised James to take over the company without imitating Joseph and to use him as a bad example. James seemed to have agreed with it, and he is currently studying to get ready to be president. James was very meticulous in the timing of his resignation. "I don't want to work with a company that treats their clients so disrespectfully," declared the president. "And now that Tom and you are both gone, I see no reason to keep the relationship going. That's why I terminated the agreement." I responded, "Yeah, the office was in chaos yesterday." The president chuckled. "I apologize, but you shouldn't be concerned. I did not mention James's name or yours. I didn't mean to bother you in any way. Seldom did anyone bring up my resignation in the midst of the chaos. To be honest, I was happy with the outcome." Eventually, James and I both formally resigned and joined the business owned by James's father. We've never worked somewhere as welcoming as this one, and the staff has really made us feel at home. With a sigh, the president remarked, "That Joseph manager just will not give up. I've told him over and over that I can't stand his disrespectful behavior, but he just keeps coming up with excuses, such as saying he wasn't even intoxicated when he said it. He stays in touch with me. I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up at the office." I agreed and nodded. Joseph will not acknowledge that the deal was terminated because of him. He won't ever take responsibility for this, since he knows that if he looks bad, his job at the company could be in danger. At that moment, a staff member entered and announced, "Sir, you have a visitor." We were surprised to see Joseph there, along with one of my old coworkers. James and I accompanied the president to the meeting room where Joseph and my old colleague were waiting, per his request. Joseph and my former colleague both appeared surprised as we walked in. "Tom, James, what have the two of you done here?" Joseph cried out, and my old colleague said, "Wait, were you headhunted?" The president calmly retorted, "I just brought on talented staff members. No headhunting was done in this instance." Joseph seems to comprehend something all of a sudden. "Wait a minute. James and the president is also James." James gave a nod. "He's my father." When Joseph and my former colleague heard that, they both went pale. I turned to face my former coworker, who said, "But why are you here, Tom?" I told the truth. James is my high school junior. The president and I have known each other for a very long period, and he has always welcomed me to change employment at any time. I resigned because I was tired of working for someone like Joseph, and because he continuously asking me to stop. Joseph's mouth quivered. "No way." I raised my voice. "At last, do you see why I laughed when you sent me packing after the event? I've known the president's secretary for a long time, and she was the receptionist." Naturally, the president was informed of the entire interaction and is aware of your repeated threats to have James and I resign or declare us incompetent. Joseph angrily shook his head. "No, none of stuff was said by me. It was this guy, if anything." He blamed our colleague for it. The look of bewilderment twisted my coworker's face. "What? You're calling me names now, after all the support I gave you because you're the future president? Say, incompetent." James and I couldn't help but chuckle at the scene as Joseph yelled violently. I went on, "Someone like Joseph, who is obviously not qualified, should probably step aside. It's one thing to be the next president if you're competent. How can you expect to lead the company when you can't even handle your current position effectively?" Both James and the president gave a nod of approval. "Shut up," Joseph growled, but I was not going to stop. "Due to your terrible behavior during the event, you have already lost the contract. That cannot be concealed. Although embarrassing, there's nothing you can do about it. The president then made a statement. Tom has always had talent, as I know. I could have given this contract to another company, but I decided to keep it because Tom and my son were employed there. However, a manager who calls my son and Tom names, and that very manager is going to be the president? Furthermore, I was humiliated during the event by the next president. The only logical course of action was to terminate the contract. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, Joseph clutched desperately to the president. I sincerely apologize. The performance of our organization may suffer if we lose your contract, Joseph begged. It's unacceptable to show up to a client events so inebriated that you can't even talk properly, I replied. And behaving as though you're using your business to do the client a favor? Perhaps it's time for you to adjust your mindset. That sort of action makes it understandable why the contract was terminated. Joseph gave me a scowl. Cease talking. He said, I don't need anything from this place anymore, and stormed out. You knew this client was important, and yet you couldn't stop him. I turned to face my old colleague. How does that reflect on you? He looked back at me, but all he could muster was the same pathetic "shut up." And then he pitiedly called after Joseph. Joseph never got back to me after that, and their company's performance kept becoming worse. They were devastated to lose the contract with James's father's business. But to be honest, they had no marketing expertise in the first place. Despite the fact that I left handover paperwork behind, it appears that none of the job was completed. In a few months, the business declared bankruptcy. Later, I noticed Joseph, who appeared thin, browsing the cheap aisle of a nearby supermarket. It was obvious he was having financial difficulties. A few months later, I saw my old colleague in a cafe, clearly still without a job, while he looked feverishly through a book on interview methods. In the interim, I gained the president's confidence in my new job and was given the marketing division. James is putting a lot of effort into his preparation for the presidency. He's assuming more and more of a leadership role, and I intend to continue to stand behind him as he further realizes his destiny as president.